there's been a pause for 90 days for some nations, all now on a flat 10% reciprocal tariff. But President Trump is still maintaining the rage of targeting China. That's the main target of his vitriol, with a whopping 125% tariff. It seems like it's there's an asterisk next to that because it's rising by the day. And they've thrown one back at him. The unconventional economist, Leith Van Onselen, joins us again to unpack what the latest developments mean. Hello, Leith.
G'day, Bill. How are you?
I'm well. Another day, another bit of Trump drama to talk about. How are the big businessmen and companies that bankrolled his rise to power affecting his decision-making, do you think, after what I was just mentioning there about the calls to look at whether he's manipulated the market?
Yeah, well, mate, to be honest with you, it certainly looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In 1 week, if you think about just what's happened in the last week, it's been quite extraordinary. So, first of all, we got the whole Liberation Day tariffs, which were a lot stronger than most people thought, and they were obviously very ad hoc. The way they were applied didn't make much sense. Then we basically got a 3-day market crash. I should say correction, went down about 10% in the US and 8.5% in Australia. And then we sort of marked time for about 2 days where it sort of went up and down, but basically flat over a couple of days. And then now we've got the biggest one-day rally since 2008 after, President Trump announced a pause on tariffs and, a lower rate for countries other than China. They're all going to get 10% tariffs rather than in the case of, say, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, anything between 1.25%. And, yeah, look, basically, I'll be honest, mate, every morning I wake up now. So this morning I went to the gym at about 5 a.m. and woke up and got on my phone straight away. You just read about it. You don't know what's going to come the next day.
Yeah.
It's just, and this just means that I think we're just going to get volatility in the markets because nobody knows what's going on. The president is very erratic and, it does look almost like market manipulation. Like maybe he's giving a wink to some of his buddies and he's going, short the market today, I'm going to do this, or, you might want to go long.
Would something like that be easily tracked or plotted, or would there be a way to have a look at that and go, or is it all just conspiracy theory and guesswork?
Yeah, look, I mean, it certainly is illegal, but we know that he has. I'm talking about the president here. He's changed a lot of legal systems in the US. I mean, look, I'm not an expert in exactly what's changed, but I've read enough to know that he's made some changes there, and who knows how he's signaling people. I mean, he could do it on Telegram. He could be doing a nod and a wink. I don't know, but it does seem that he's generating volatility. It almost seems like it's on purpose, and then maybe there's people profiting off that volatility. I mean, obviously there's always people who profit from volatility, but it could be unfairly profiting from volatility because I know what's coming.
Well, it seems like a tap. It seems like if there is someone that he's in his ear or he's in their ear, it's like, I'm going to put these tariffs on today, get ready. It seems like he could just turn the tap on and off because of the position he's in.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, none of us really know. And this could be conspiracy theory. He could just be dealing with an erratic person. But either way, it certainly added a lot of volatility in the markets. And one thing, markets hate is uncertainty. And he's just delivering it daily, it seems.
Yeah. Well, how is the world reacting at the moment with this latest rise against China? And a question I was throwing around just as a half a joke this morning, like, where does this stop? It seems to be, it was 34, then it was 50 something, and then it was 100. Now it's 125. It's just like a game of poker here. It's, I'll raise you, and I'm going to go. Where does it stop? And what's the world thinking of this?
Oh, mate, I can't answer that question. So this is unprecedented what we're seeing at the moment. So, it started off with months ago tariff of I think it was 10% or something. Then it went to 30 odd, and then he jacked it up another 50, and then now it's so it keeps going up, and it's in response because China keeps retaliating. So every time America ups their tariff, China goes, "Yep, no worries, I see your chip and I raise you."
Yes,
and then the US retaliates again. But the problem with it is that this is really problematic for Australia because 1/3 of Australia's exports go to China. So China is our biggest export market by far. And what this means is that if the tariff into the US is the biggest consumer market in the world. The most consumer products in the US come from China. So if they impose a 125% tariff, that means that China's likely to demand less, iron ore and coal and other stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's where the biggest risk is for Australia. It's the second round impact from impacting China, which is our biggest export market, and then having the spillovers to Australia. Also, the Australian dollar's kind of become almost a proxy for China, for the Chinese economy a little bit. So, if this keeps going, the Australian dollar is likely to get smashed as well. That's almost the biggest economic implications for Australia is the indirect impact through China.
What do you make now of also a couple of things? He's mentioned Australia a couple of times with our beef, and now he's talking about our coal. And he's put another executive order through that's, I think, made coal a critical mineral, and he's saying, Australia exports all their coal to China, but we've got it here as well. It looks like he wants to compete with us on coal as well.
Yeah. I mean, look. I don't have a problem with that. It's a free market. They should be allowed to. The bigger implication here is that this whole net zero thing is dead.
Yep.
Right. This whole notion of net zero emissions has been killed, not just by President Trump, but by China and India as well. So, in the last decade, China's increased its coal consumption by 50%, and India has increased its coal consumption by 75%. And now we have the United States, which is the second biggest emitter after China, basically saying, you know what, we're going to ramp up coal, we're going to revitalise coal both domestically. So President Trump said they're going to burn more coal in the US because they've been shutting down coal for years and replace it with gas. We're going to refire up coal domestically, so we're going to burn more coal, which means more emissions, and we're going to sell more coal. And effectively, those three nations, China, the US, and India, account for more than half of the world's emissions. And those three countries are burning, well, America's about to, but China and India are burning coal hand over fist and increasing their coal use every single year. And now America's going to do it. So what does that mean for this whole net zero dream? It's a fantasy. It's never going to happen because the three biggest emitters aren't playing the same game. And what this means, what I think for Australia is we should abandon net zero. Like what are we doing? We're 1% of the world's carbon emissions, and we're going to save the planet when the three biggest emitters, which account for more than half of the world's carbon emissions, and in the case of China and India, they are driving the growth in carbon emissions, aren't doing the same thing.
What are people to consider and try and work out ahead of this federal election when we've got the debate today between the two energy ministers over renewables versus nuclear in a broad sense? If this is dead in the water, and we've got the Queensland government, you may have seen this week, that have walked away and said we're going to abandon 2035 net zero targets.
As they should. I mean, the fact of the matter is Australia should prioritise energy stability, security and cost above everything else. Because if we don't do that, we're just going to shut down all our manufacturing, which we have been doing anyway, let's face it. We're going to give ourselves expensive energy when we have loads of energy at home, natively. And we're just going to basically send the rest of our manufacturing across to China. And at the same time as we send our hydrocarbons, so coal and gas, to China to burn instead of us. So we're effectively exporting energy security to China and in turn giving ourselves expensive energy, expensive cost of living, destroying our industrial base, which just ends up going to China anyway. And so net for the world's climate, the climate's no better off. We're just killing ourselves. And Australia exports about 5 or 6 times more coal than it burns itself domestically. So why not just export a tiny bit less and burn more yourself, give yourself cheap energy?
So we're in the middle of a federal election cycle. Neither is going to be bold enough to want to walk away from it. So we're just going to have to cop it as the voters and the consumers paying high energy prices because we're flying this little flag in the world trying to save the planet with these ridiculous targets.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, I will say the Coalition's energy policy is far superior to Labor's. And the reason for that is that they have a policy of domestic gas reservation. Yeah. And they've promised to deliver, an East Coast gas price of $10 per gigajoule or below. And I know that's a real, that's actually achievable because we've seen the gas cartel come out and complain and actually argue that it could go lower through domestic reservation. And the alternative to not doing that, which is Labor's policy, is to effectively have gas imports by the end of the year or early next year, which is going to send the gas price to about $20 a gigajoule because we'll be paying import parity prices. So that is the counterfactual. The Coalition, you get $10 East Coast gas, which also means cheaper electricity prices. because gas is one of the marginal price setters of electricity, or you vote Labor and you start importing gas because we have this artificial domestic shortage despite the fact that we export nearly three-quarters of it on the East Coast, and then you end up with much more expensive electricity as well. So the coalition's energy policy is far superior. Personally, I'd like to see the coalition say, you know what, we're going to ban net zero. The three biggest emitters aren't playing the same game. They're burning more coal. We're going to burn more coal domestically. We're going to give ourselves cheap gas. And we're not going to build this hideously expensive renewables build-out, which is going to cost $500 billion, which just gets added to our power bills or taxes. And we're going to give ourselves cheap and reliable electricity, because without cheap and reliable electricity and gas, you can't have economic security. You can't have...
It underpins everything, doesn't it?
It underpins everything, mate. And if we don't have, cheap, reliable and affordable energy, we won't have an industry.
Yeah. If they listen, the coalition listened to the definition and the explanation you just gave, I reckon voters, and I'll ask them now, if they put that on the table and said, we're going to walk back from this and we're going to do what you said and we're going to make it cheaper and we're going to supply it ourselves, I think people would, over the next couple of weeks, would probably jump on the coalition, so it could work in their favour.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, to be honest with you, mate, they should. The coalition should do this. Australia cannot be a net zero hero when it literally exports 80% of its gas and exports about 5 or 6 times more coal than it burns itself. So it's totally hypocritical. We are exporting energy security to Asia, but denying ourselves security. And why don't we just export a little bit less gas and export a little bit less coal and just burn that ourselves?
Yeah.
Give ourselves cheap energy, and the world's climate would be no worse off.
Yeah.
In fact, in the case of gas, it'd be better off because you wouldn't have to liquefy it, which uses heaps of energy, and you wouldn't have to put it on a ship and transport it halfway across the world because you'd burn it just straight out of the ground here.
Yeah.
So, these are the sorts of conversations the federal government and the opposition need to be having, because at the moment they're still wedded to this net zero fantasy, when the fact of the matter is the big players, the big boys, China, US and India, China and India are already burning more coal, and they've announced they're going to keep burning more coal and increasing the amount of coal they burn. And they import heaps as well, obviously. But the US has now walked back, and they've said that they're going to burn more coal as well and also export more coal. So if the three biggest players that account for more than the world's, half the world's carbon emissions, and China and India are actually driving the growth in carbon emissions, what do you think Australia can do when we're 1%? We can't save the world, but we can save ourselves.
Yeah, that's really simple way to put it. And I don't think we'll call him Blackout Bowen anymore. We'll call him Brainwash Bowen. I don't think he's going to walk back from it. I know he won't walk back from it now. Well, I've got to ask you though, before we're running out of time. But I know many Aussies, many people listening, even people whose parents are connected with our show, particularly close to retirement, are worried about their superannuation off the back of the fall in markets with Trump tariffs and their balances. Have we seen the worst of this yet? What would you say to them? What do they do?
Look, I'll be honest, it's impossible to tell. So I think the markets are going to bounce very strongly today because we had a 9% gain on Wall Street overnight. But that doesn't mean, they're down about 7% in the past week since this whole fiasco started. We'll probably get a big rise today, so we'll pare back some of those losses. But in terms of what's going to happen going forward, who knows? I mean, it all depends on what President Trump does. Does he double down again on the tariffs? Does he totally walk them back permanently? Who knows? We just don't know. Sit
tight then and just hang on?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it depends what stage of life you are. I'm 47. I got years away from retirement, so I'm not doing anything.
All right.
Set it out. But obviously, if you're closer to retirement, well then, it's a conversation you probably need to have with your financial advisor, or just do your own analysis and weigh up the pros and cons.
Yeah, good advice. Nice to talk again, mate. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries, Bill.
Leith Van Onselen, the unconventional economist, making so much sense yet again. 133 882.